namaskar. This is Firstpost and you're watching Vantage with me, Palki Sharma. India is preparing for all scenarios. Tomorrow, 244 districts in the country will hold mock drills. From responding to air raid sirens to taking cover, this exercise is to teach people what to do in a war-like situation. India is also conducting tests and boosting its arsenal. Meanwhile, in Pakistan, their defense minister is making nuclear threats and jumping at shadows. But for all their bravado, can Pakistan even afford a war? Global ratings agency Moody's has confirmed what we all knew. The first casualty of conflict will be Pakistan's economy. Also, do they have a military that can fight a war? We'll bring you a special report on how the rhetoric does not match the reality. They were hoping for global support, but that plan blew up yesterday. Reports say Pakistan was grilled at a closed-door meeting of the United Nations Security Council. Amid all of this, the attacks have begun in the cyberspace. We look at what's being targeted and how India is poised. Also in focus, OpenAI has reversed course. It is now decided to remain a non-profit company. After much back and forth, India and the UK have finally sealed a free trade deal. The Vatican will start a crucial meeting tomorrow to decide on the next pope. We'll tell you why China looms large on this decision, how Canada's Khalistan problem has not changed despite a new Prime Minister taking charge, why India has slammed the auction of sacred jewels linked to the Buddha, and Shah Rukh Khan at the Met Gala. All this and more coming up. The headlines first. Israeli airstrikes hit Yemen's airport and power stations in the capital, Sana'a. This is the latest retaliation for a missile attack by the Iran-backed group on Sunday. Yesterday, Israel targeted a key Yemeni port. These exchanges come as regional tensions soar over Israel's plan to expand its operations in Gaza. 7 Pakistani paramilitary troops killed in an attack in Balochistan after a homemade bomb targeted their convoy. No one has claimed responsibility for the attack yet. Violence has surged in Balochistan, which borders Afghanistan and Iran. This year, around 200 people have been killed in Balochistan and neighboring Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. Drone strike the airport in the Sudanese city of Port Sudan. Power has been cut across the city on the Red Sea. This is the third consecutive day of attacks. The army has blamed the paramilitary rapid support forces for the strikes. So far, Port Sudan was a safe haven for the thousands who have been displaced in the 2-year war. Russian President Putin and his Chinese counterpart will discuss the Ukraine war on Thursday. This will be during Xi Jinping's state visit to Moscow, which begins tomorrow. Also on the agenda are US-Russia relations. The Chinese president will be the guest of honor at Moscow's Victory Day parade on Friday. And German lawmakers vote for Friedrich Merz to become their new chancellor. This was the second round of voting. The conservative leader lost the first round in an unexpected setback. Merz boasts of a strong business background, but he has never held a government leadership post before. The war drums are beating. Until now, India was only preparing its military, but now it is preparing the people too. The Indian government has ordered a nationwide civil defense drill. It is slated for May 7th, which is tomorrow. It will cover 244 districts across all states. That's almost 1/3 of India's districts. We have a total of 800. This drill will take place in 244 of them. These have been selected based on specific criteria. Are they close to the border? Are they home to key assets like ports or refineries? Do they have a large urban population and are they located on the coast? These factors determine whether a district is at higher risk. And based on that risk assessment, these 244 districts have been picked. School students, volunteers, cadet groups and district officials will all be taking part. The idea is to gauge civilian readiness. If war breaks out, do the people know how to respond? Do they know how to take cover or evacuate? That's the broad idea here, to prepare the people. The order was issued by the Home Ministry yesterday. It talks about 5 measures. Number 1, using the air raid sirens. This will warn civilians about impending attacks. That's the first objective. Number 2, training civilians to protect themselves in case of an attack, like taking cover below a table or crawling into a safe space. Some schools have already started doing this. Take a look at this. In Lucknow, local officials and cops were involved. They rehearsed rescue and first aid drills. Even the air raid siren was tested. In Srinagar, rescue drills were held on the Dal Lake. They used speedboats and rafts. Point number 3 on what this drill hopes to achieve. Provision of blackout measures. The idea is to throw off enemy fighter jets. If a city is well lit, the enemy can easily find targets. If it's dark, they will have trouble doing so. So street lights and factory lights will be turned off. No hoarding lights, no decorative lights, nothing that could guide enemy fighters. Next is objective number 4 of the drill. Camouflaging vital targets. Again, this is about throwing the enemy off. If war breaks out, the other side will target our power stations or military installations. The goal is to conceal those targets. And finally, objective number 5, updating evacuation plans and rehearsing them. Like I said, these are mock drills, but they will simulate a war-like situation. We urge all Indians to cooperate with the authorities. Do not take these drills lightly. The last time this was held was in 1971. The last time such a drill was held, 1971. Days later, India declared war against Pakistan. Now, we may or may not see a repeat this time, but you should be vigilant regardless. Away from the cities, our military is conducting drills and tests. Yesterday, the Navy tested a homegrown mine. It was developed by the DRDO, which is the Defense Research and Development Organization, DRDO. Now, this mine can target submarines and stealth ships. Take a look. There's more firepower in store for the Navy. It will soon get a warship from Russia, the frigate INS Tamal. India and Russia had signed a deal in 2016. India was to buy 4 frigates from Russia. The first one, INS Tushil, was commissioned late last year. It reached Indian waters in February. The second one is Tamal. It is undergoing final tests in Kaliningrad. Chances are it will be commissioned in 1 month. After that, it will sail towards India. All these moves will be watched closely in Pakistan because right now they're jumping at shadows, especially their defense minister. This is a man called Khwaja Asif, and he's all over the place. Asif says India could strike across the LOC at any moment. He has also issued a nuclear warning. Listen to this.
If India dares to attack Pakistan and Pakistan's existence comes under threat, nobody will survive in this world. There are reports that India may strike at any point along the LOC. New Delhi will be given a befitting reply.
Well, if anyone is striking, it is Pakistan. They have been provoking India along the LOC, the line of control. Firing was reported yesterday as well. It marked the 12th consecutive night of ceasefire violations by Pakistan. And as always, the Indian army responded. In New Delhi, high-level meetings continue. Today, Prime Minister Narendra Modi met National Security Advisor Ajit Doval. It was their second meeting in 24 hours. Tomorrow, the Union Cabinet will be convening. It will be their second meeting since the Kashmir attack. Clearly, India is covering all bases, whether it's political, diplomatic, or military preparedness. As civilians, we need to do our bit as well. Tomorrow's drills will be a huge logistical task. It's hard enough in any country. It will be twice as hard in a country with 1.4 billion people, which is why the people should be vigilant. Do not spread panic on social media. Do not forward random WhatsApp messages. And follow the official advice. What do all these preparations tell you? That India is getting ready for every scenario, including the possibility of an armed conflict with Pakistan. What about Pakistan? Can they even afford a war? The short answer is no, and we already know that. But for those who had doubts, there's a new assessment that's out. It is from the ratings agency Moody's. It is sounding an alarm. Moody's released a report/warning for Pakistan. The Defense Minister Khwaja Asif must take note because he's been threatening strikes. The Moody's report says the first casualty of a conflict with India will be Pakistan's economy. Growth will slow down further, debt pressure will rise, and foreign funding that's already dwindling could dry up. Of course, Pakistan cannot fund itself. It survives on bailouts. So it needs foreign funding very badly. Later this week, the IMF will meet. That's the International Monetary Fund, the lender of the last resort. They will meet to review their latest loan to Pakistan. You see, 8 months ago, the IMF gave the last package worth $7 billion. This is Pakistan's bailout number 27. That's correct. They've taken 24 bailouts in less than 7 decades. The first one came in 1958, the first bailout, 1958. Since then, 24 IMF bailouts for Pakistan. This is a world record. No other country has borrowed more money from the IMF than Pakistan, and that is just one foreign source, the International Monetary Fund, one of the many sources that Pakistan has. They rely on multiple countries and multiple agencies for handouts. In 2019, 47% of Pakistan's debt came from global institutions. By the end of 2024, that number jumped to 56%. And look at the kind of money that Pakistan owes. Nearly $16 billion to the Asian Development Bank, more than $20 billion to the World Bank, and at least $8 billion to the IMF. That's the $7 billion bailout package. This is being dispersed in stages. And on top of that, the IMF gave another loan to Pakistan in the month of March, a climate resilience loan of $1.3 billion. Well, that's a lot of money and debt. But that's not all. Pakistan also owes money to bilateral lenders. The biggest one is China. Pakistan owes China over $28 billion. Saudi Arabia comes second. Pakistan owes them around $9 billion. And their debt has been on the rise. Last year, Pakistan's total external debt shot up by 18%. In 2023, the debt was around $73 billion. Last year, it crossed $86 billion. So Pakistan is surviving on loans and bailouts. The obvious question is this: where is this money going? Are these bailouts funding Pakistan's terror activities? India has been pushing this point to show the world how their loans are funding Pakistani terrorism. And now India plans to raise this issue with global agencies, the likes of the World Bank and the IMF. India will ask both these lenders to look into this, to examine how Pakistan is using its bailout funds. And it's a legitimate question. In fact, those lending money to Pakistan must raise it themselves. The April 22 attack, the one in Pahalgam, killed 26 tourists. The Pahalgam attack killed 26 tourists. The Resistance Front took responsibility for it. This is a group linked to the Lashkar-e-Toiba, which is a UN-designated terror outfit based in and backed by Pakistan. Despite international sanctions, the Lashkar-e-Toiba is thriving in Pakistan. Their leaders remain active. They are clearly well-funded. They have enough cash to run terror camps and to carry out cross-border attacks. So we come back to the question, where are they getting the money from? Who is funding these Pakistani terror groups and how? India should build a strong case and take it to the FATF, the Financial Action Task Force. This is the global terror financing watchdog. The next FATF meeting is in June. India should use that opportunity to highlight how UN-sanctioned groups are still active in Pakistan and how Islamabad has failed to curb their financing. India must push for action and get Pakistan back into the FATF grey list, which is very important to restrict the flow of foreign money into Pakistan. This should happen irrespective of India's military response. It's important to build sustained pressure on Pakistan's finances because this terror state cannot afford a conflict. Not when its economy runs on borrowed money. Not when it is surviving on bailouts. Pakistan's lenders must take responsibility for its actions. If not, they will be complicit in bankrolling a war against India. Now let's talk about Pakistan's army. They've been the ones beating the war drums lately. Since the Pahalgam terror attack, military drills have increased, surface-to-surface missiles have been tested, Indian army posts along the LOC have been fired upon. This has happened for 12 consecutive days. Pakistan has also increased deployments along the border, like tanks, troops and artillery systems. These are all indicators of a build-up for a possible confrontation. But is Pakistan's army ready for war? They love to project themselves as a military powerhouse. They call themselves battle-hardened and disciplined. But scratch the surface and the cracks are glaring. When you cut through the posturing, the press conferences and the propaganda, what you find beneath the carefully curated image is a hollow shell. The fact is, Pakistan's army is underfunded, overstretched and politically divided. Let's start with the money, or the lack of it. Pakistan is teetering on the edge of bankruptcy. Buried under debt worth billions of dollars, inflation is skyrocketing, the Pakistani rupee is falling. As we just showed you, they survive bailout to bailout. The army does not have fuel reserves for its tanks and jets. In fact, in the past, they've cancelled drills because of this, because they did not have fuel. So Pakistan's generals may dream of war, but their checkbooks beg to differ. Now let's talk hardware. Pakistan boasts about its tanks and fighter jets, but quantity is not quality. Most of their equipment is either Chinese knockoffs or American hand-me-downs, like the JF-17 and the J-10 jets made by China and flown by Pakistan. Both these jets are known for reliability issues. They constantly face engine-related problems. There's also the American-made F-16. It's a machine from the 1980s. Despite upgrades, Pakistan struggles to keep them fully operational. Last year, their F-16 fleet was nearly completely grounded. Do you know why? No money. Pakistan simply could not afford to fly the F-16. That's the Air Force. What about their army? Well, they have 650,000 personnel, 650,000. Their main weapons are Chinese tanks and rifles, weapons that have never faced battle conditions. Plus, Pakistan's army is high on propaganda but low on morale. Their generals are busy playing kingmaker. They're more interested in selecting the next prime minister. But the rank and file face the heat. Pakistan's army is losing control of its own backyard. Balochistan is burning. The region saw a 119% increase in attacks last year. Meanwhile, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa is bleeding. The TTP is back. That's the Taliban in Pakistan. They have threatened to increase their attacks on the Pakistan army. Attacks on military convoys are already rising. Suicide bombings have increased by 93%. So who is protecting Pakistan? Certainly not the army. They themselves need protection. They're stretched thin. They want to project power, but they can barely fight the fires at home. This is not a war-ready force. This is an institution on life support. And yet they threaten India with war. Let me tell you what the Pakistan army is good at. They're good at running a business empire. I'm not talking about the terror factories. I'm talking about something called the Fauji Foundation. It is one of the largest business conglomerates in the country. It controls more than 18 industries, like housing, education, and agriculture. Yes, the military runs all of this. Almost a quarter of Pakistan's economy runs on farming, but the country's farming is run by the military. Let me show you some numbers. They're staggering. The army owns almost 5 million acres of farmland in Pakistan. The army owns 5 million acres of farmland in Pakistan, almost 2 million acres in the Sindh province, another 1 million is in Pakistan's Punjab, and the rest is in Balochistan and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. From rice to wheat to eggs to bread, the Pakistan army deals in everything. Their generals have become CEOs, their soldiers play the role of salesmen. Pakistan's military is a shadow of what it claims to be. It's a force built on propaganda, not preparedness. Unfortunately for them, rhetoric does not win battles. Resources and training do. So is the Pakistan army ready for war? The answer is a resounding no. It's an army living on borrowed money and borrowed time. And when mere survival is your strategy, you've already lost the battle. Let's shift away from the military push. Instead, let's look at diplomacy. How are India and Pakistan faring on the global stage? Yesterday was a good indicator of that. The UN Security Council gathered behind closed doors. The agenda? To discuss tensions between India and Pakistan. No statement has been issued, but multiple reports give us an inside scoop. First, the Council was briefed by a UN official, perhaps on the ground situation and the peace efforts. After that, Pakistan was grilled. Reports say tough questions were put to Pakistan by the members. On what? The role of Lashkar-e-Toiba in the Pahalgam attack. Also the recent missile tests. Pakistan test-fired 2 missiles in 3 days. United Nations Security Council members apparently raised concerns about this. They also questioned Pakistan's nuclear rhetoric. All of this suggests a setback for Islamabad. They had clear goals heading into yesterday's meeting. 1, to internationalize the issue, and 2, to pin the blame on India. Reports say Pakistan pushed the narrative of a false flag operation. What does that mean? What's a false flag operation? Basically, they blamed India for planning the Pahalgam attack. They said India did it. But that effort was rejected by the UN Security Council. Most members asked Pakistan to solve the issue bilaterally, meaning no global intervention. Beyond that, Council members said the obvious things like all sides must de-escalate, Pakistan and India must talk to each other. Now, Islamabad is trying to spin these outcomes. Their envoy says that most of their objectives were met. Listen to this.
Pakistan believes all these objectives were largely served and achieved by this meeting. We thank Council members for their engagement and their calls for restraint, de-escalation, and dialogue. Several members recognize the imperative of peacefully resolving all issues, including the Jammu and Kashmir dispute, in accordance with the UN resolutions and wishes of the Kashmiri people.
Well, that's far from true. Just consider what happened after the Pahalgam attack. The United Nations Security Council released a media statement. It did not even name Pakistan or the terrorists. The statement was vague and soft because Islamabad pushed for it. As we've been telling you, Pakistan is on the UN Security Council right now. It is one of the 10 non-permanent members. As a result, they were able to dilute the UNSC statement. But yesterday's meeting was different. Yesterday, Pakistan was grilled. So what changed this time? In simple words, India joined the game. In the days after the attack, India's focus was at home. Opposition parties had to be briefed, the cabinet security meeting had to be held, the defense chiefs had to be given orders. The government was focused primarily on the domestic front. But that changed last week. Foreign Minister Jaishankar led the campaign. He spoke to 9 non-permanent UNSC members, the 10th, of course, being Pakistan. And he briefed them on the attack and on India's intentions. What about the permanent members? Prime Minister Modi has reached out to 4 of them. He spoke to US President Donald Trump, French President Emmanuel Macron, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, and Russian President Vladimir Putin. The 5th permanent member of the UNSC is China. But Prime Minister Modi has not spoken to Xi Jinping for obvious reasons. China calls Pakistan an iron brother, so no point wasting time there. Now, yesterday, this diplomatic push paid dividends. Not only was Pakistan's narrative rejected by the UN Security Council, some of the members grilled Islamabad. The question is, what more can the UNSC do? Frankly, not very much. If there's a military escalation, the UNSC may take the next step, which is to meet and pass a resolution. In that case, non-permanent members would become irrelevant. Only the P5 would matter. P5 stands for the 5 permanent members, P5. They have the veto power. If even one of them rejects a resolution, it will be junked. It doesn't matter if every other member supports it. Even one veto is enough. So let's game out that scenario. If the resolution is critical of Pakistan, then China will veto it. They will not allow it to pass. And if it's critical of India, then Russia is guaranteed to veto it. Chances are so will France, Britain, and America. In other words, the UNSC will be deadlocked. It's pointless to expect this council to do anything of substance. They will never hold Pakistan to account. So India's job is to prevent the opposite from happening, to ensure that the United Nations Security Council does not interfere in India's sovereign decisions. A new threat is emerging from Pakistan. It is invisible. It is not hiding in the mountains or inside terror launch pads at the border. This threat comes from the cyberspace. Pakistani hackers are on the offensive. They're launching cyber attacks. They're targeting defense firms as well as think tanks. The conflict has moved online. It has entered a digital battlefield. Reports say cyber attacks from Pakistan are intensifying. One Indian defense PSU was targeted. PSU is a public sector unit. These are companies owned by the government. And this is the company that was hit by a cyber attack, the Armored Vehicles Nigam Limited. Its website was defaced. Hackers replaced the home page with a Pakistani flag and an image of the Al Khalid battle tank. And that wasn't all. The hackers claimed that they targeted the Military Engineering Services. Again, this is a government organization. It looks after defense infrastructure. And who are the hackers? The group calls itself Pakistan Cyber Force. But they're not acting alone. 2 more groups have surfaced in the last 2 weeks. Cyber Group Hoax 1337 and National Cyber Crew. They have launched cyber attacks on military-linked websites, also on army schools. Some pages on their website were defaced. In some cases, they mocked the victims of the Pahalgam attack. So these aren't just hacks. These are digital provocations. They are deliberate and dangerous. Experts say that this is part of Pakistan's wider playbook, a digital extension of its strategy, as it were. It's not just cyber warfare. It is a psychological operation designed to provoke, to test India's restraint, and to potentially exploit vulnerabilities in the digital space. So how should India respond? How can India protect itself? Does India have the capabilities to deal with this threat? Experts say yes, India has the right tools. In fact, there is some precedent as well. In 2013, analysts in Norway revealed a cyber operation. It had roots in India. The campaign lasted years. It targeted military and government systems in Pakistan. Indian hackers managed to extract high-value data. The operation was named Hangover. Now, let me be clear, there is no proof of state involvement. The Norwegians identified some Indian hacking groups reportedly based in Delhi. The attacks were sophisticated. They used fake news links to trap Pakistani targets. The goal was surveillance, information gathering. Now, more recently, another operation came to light. Targets in Pakistan were tricked into downloading malicious apps. They were disguised as dating or messaging platforms. Apps called Meet Me, Quick Chat, and Rafaqat were floated. Apparently, these apps had a malware. Once these apps were installed, the malware was activated. It extracted data from phones. The group behind this was called Patchwork. It had been active since 2015. Most of its victims were in Pakistan. The campaign was uncovered by a Slovak cybersecurity firm. Now, in the past, reports have identified a malware called Vajra Spy. It also did the same thing, extracted personal data from its targets. And these findings confirm a pattern, a silent war unfolding in the cyberspace. And India is not new to this. Pakistan has opened a new front, a digital front in this fight. India must not ignore it because cyber war is now part of modern conflict. It can cripple systems, it can expose secrets, it can shake public trust. The rules of engagement have changed. The next phase of this conflict might not even need missiles. Just a keyboard and an internet connection could be enough. Our next story is about OpenAI. It started out as a humble non-profit, but it quickly set its sights on something bigger, becoming a full-blown Silicon Valley giant. For years, it chased that dream, raising billions, signing mega deals, and building some of the world's most powerful AI. But now it seems that OpenAI has given up on this dream. Today, CEO Sam Altman announced a major shakeup. OpenAI is transitioning into a public benefit corporation, PBC, Public Benefit Corporation. That means it will pursue profits, but with a mission to serve the public good. More importantly, the non-profit board will have the final say. So what triggered this U-turn, and what does it mean for OpenAI's future and its funding? Our next report breaks it down.
The year was 2015. A group of tech titans came together, including the likes of Sam Altman. He was backed by tech billionaires like Elon Musk and Reid Hoffman. So together, they set up OpenAI. But here's the catch. OpenAI was not set up as just any other tech company. It was set up as a nonprofit. Why? Because their core mission was not to make money. It was to help humanity. But altruism can't pay the bills. OpenAI was spending like a tech company, but operating like a nonprofit. So, they devised a new plan. In 2019, they restructured themselves. They went from nonprofit to capped profit. This allowed them to create a subsidiary purely for profit. This subsidiary would raise money, and that money would help run the company. This year, OpenAI planned to take that restructuring ahead. It wanted to transition to a for-profit company. But that plan has now been scuttled. Sam Altman has announced the new governance structure. OpenAI will not become a for-profit company. It will become a PBC. That's a public benefit corporation. This allows it to chase profit, while also committing to a public benefit purpose. The nonprofit board will continue to run the show. So what explains this move? Why did OpenAI give up its for-profit dreams? To understand that, we'll have to go back to 2023. Sam Altman was ousted as CEO. The decision was taken by the nonprofit board. He was soon reinstated. But since then, Sam Altman has raised billions for OpenAI. The condition for these investments was restructuring. Investors pumped money into OpenAI, knowing that they will one day become for profit. Take SoftBank, for example.
What AI can do, and
Recently, OpenAI closed a $40 billion funding round, led by SoftBank. OpenAI received $10 billion in April. But the rest of the $30 billion is contingent on restructuring. OpenAI has to run into a for-profit company to get it, but the company did not. There are 3 reasons for this. First is legal and regulatory scrutiny. The proposed restructuring faced intense scrutiny, especially from the Attorneys General of California and Delaware. There are concerns that it compromise OpenAI's original mission. That is to ensure that artificial general intelligence benefits all of humanity. 2. Public and internal opposition. The plan was met with strong opposition from former employees and AI experts. Leading the cause was Elon Musk. He filed a lawsuit against OpenAI, trying to block the plan. That lawsuit is still ongoing. So this is a win for Musk, especially in the battle against Sam Altman. The last reason is mission alignment. OpenAI's leadership recognized that maintaining nonprofit control aligns better with its foundational mission. It balances the need for capital with ethics. And a public benefit corporation solves for that. It allows OpenAI to chase capital, while still being mission-driven. The idea will still need to be approved by a lot of people, including Microsoft. But with this latest move, OpenAI is signaling that investor returns can be prioritized, but not at the cost of the company's soul. And perhaps Sam Altman said it best. OpenAI is not a normal company, and never will be.
Everyone is focused on Pakistan, but India has notched up a victory elsewhere. With the United Kingdom, New Delhi and London have concluded a free trade agreement. Now, India is the 5th largest economy in the world, and the UK is the 6th largest economy, so a free trade deal between them is very significant. Also very contentious, and that is why it has taken us so long. These free trade talks began in early 2022. It's taken more than 3 years, 15 rounds of talks and multiple bilateral trips. But finally, we have a deal. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi spoke to UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer. Afterwards, he announced the FTA. Let me quote from his statement. India and the UK have successfully concluded an ambitious and mutually beneficial free trade agreement. This landmark agreement will further deepen our comprehensive strategic partnership and catalyze trade, investment, growth, job creation, and innovation in both our economies. Prime Minister Modi says he looks forward to hosting Keir Starmer, so the UK Prime Minister could be visiting India soon. It's a big victory for him too. Starmer has been under fire for his handling of the economy, but this deal will give him some respite, which brings us to the details. What does the deal say? These talks have followed a stop-start trajectory. They were paused last year during elections in the UK. After coming to power, Starmer revived it. The negotiations continued into 2025, but several sticking points remained, like visas for Indian workers, the UK's insistence on a carbon tax, basically higher taxes on industries that emit more greenhouse gases, for example, cement or steel. These differences were holding the deal hostage. So what changed? Possibly Donald Trump. His trade war has forced like-minded countries to band up. In this case, that's India and the UK. Both sides have reaffirmed their commitment to free trade. So it made sense for them to conclude this deal quickly. And the momentum was clearly there. Last month, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman visited the UK. Last week, Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal was there. So the deal was only a matter of time. And now we have it. Let's talk about the specifics now. FTAs, free trade agreements, basically reduce tariffs and other barriers. They enable free trade, meaning they help increase bilateral trade. The UK producers will be able to sell more goods in India, and Indian producers can sell more goods in the UK. That's what they're trying to achieve. Look at the big highlights of this agreement. Tariffs have been eliminated on 99% of India's exports to the UK. That's zero tariffs on virtually all exports, 99%. This is good news for all Indian producers, but it's especially good news for those in textiles, seafood, leather, and jewelry. India has also secured a win for workers in Britain. Right now, Indian workers must pay into British social security. Soon, they will have a 3-year exemption. And this was a key demand for India. London has agreed to it. What about the other side? What do they gain? India will cut tariffs on 90% of British imports. This includes cosmetics, cars, alcohol and chocolate. India will cut tariffs on British gin and whiskey. Currently, the tariffs are 150%. Now they'll come down to 75%. This will be further cut to 40% in 10 years. Another crucial cut is on British cars. Right now, they face 100% tariffs in India. Those will be cut to just 10%. However, there will be quotas on the trade, basically a limit on how many cars can be imported. These cuts are expected to boost overall trade. Right now, the UK-India trade stands at $60 billion. India's target is to double this trade by 2030. And that's where this deal will help. It could take up to 1 year for all the provisions to be implemented, but such deals are always about the long term. Plus, it's a political message. The US is talking about barriers and tariffs, but India and the UK have jointly endorsed free trade. It's a much-needed boost for the world and for world trade. Let's see how it unfolds on the ground. Tomorrow, 135 cardinals from across the world will gather inside the Vatican. They will hold the conclave. This is a secretive meeting. It will decide who the next pope will be, who will succeed the late Pope Francis. The cardinals meeting tomorrow will decide that. They could take days or weeks. As expected, there's a lot of speculation. We know only 2 things for sure. 1, all papal elections are unpredictable. And 2, China looms large over this one. That's right, China could be a significant factor in deciding who becomes the next pope. Why is that? And what does this mean for the Vatican's growing diplomatic footprint? Our next report tells you.
The People's Republic of China was established in 1949. 2 years later, its atheist communist regime severed all diplomatic ties with the Vatican as part of its grand agenda to rebuff Western influences and to make sure that religion aligned with its political agenda. What came next was government-controlled Chinese Catholicism and a clampdown on religious freedom. Chinese Catholicism is like mainstream Catholicism, except it's governed by the state and not the Pope. So bishops are appointed without the Vatican's approval. That said, a faction of the Catholic Church, also known as underground Catholics, look to the Vatican. So Beijing has historically harassed them. It has arrested clergymen and closed and destroyed churches. China has about 6 million Catholics. It's estimated that there are an additional 6 million underground Catholics. For decades, this weighed heavily on the Vatican, but diplomatic attempts bore no fruit. That is, until the late Pope Francis's papacy. In 2008, a joint accord was signed between China and the Vatican. They agreed to compromise on the appointment of bishops, with the Vatican approving names put forth by Beijing. This was a historic development. Some saw it as the willingness to share Catholic authority. Others viewed it as the Vatican ceding power to China. But despite the heavy criticism, the man behind the deal could become the next pope, Cardinal Pietro Parolin. He was the late pope's right-hand man. Tomorrow, the Vatican will hold a secretive meeting to decide who will become the next Roman Catholic pope. Speculation is rife, and the list of candidates is long. But Parolin, the 70-year-old Italian prelate, is the frontrunner. Some see the China Compromise as his signature achievement. But for many, it's a living, breathing sign of a grave error in judgment which shows the Church in a weak position. In recent days, the church has reportedly pushed up the ratings for another candidate, the 67-year-old liberal-leaning Cardinal Luis Antonio Gokim Tagle from the Philippines. If chosen, he would be the first pope from Southeast Asia. While guesses often prove inaccurate, in all likelihood, only one thing remains clear about the next pope. He may approach China the way Francis did, subtly seeking to influence the regime without alienating it. Which is probably why Taiwan is in sweats. Vatican is one of just 12 governments that recognize Taiwan as a country. And now it's scrambling to decide whom to send for the papal inauguration. This is a small example of the Vatican's political influence. Last month, Trump and Zelensky had a key meeting on the sidelines of the Pope's funeral. From being vocal about climate change to helping broker deals between countries, the Vatican has played an ever-growing role in diplomacy. There is eagerness to see who it will choose to lead its diplomatic efforts, and if the Vatican wants to continue exercising its international political influence, whether it's in relation to China or to the West, where a certain coke-chugging president might just put up a fight for the position himself.
Now let's talk about Canada. Once known as the land of maple syrup, it is now known for harboring extremists. A provocative incident has exposed Ottawa's double standards yet again. Pro-Khalistani separatists rallied in Toronto. This happened on Sunday, and it did not take long for the rally to turn ugly. The Khalistanis openly called for violence. Effigies of Indian leaders were seen in mock cages. Dummy statues of Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Home Minister Amit Shah and External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar were paraded. Slogans against India echoed through the streets. Have a look. So Khalistanis mocked Indian leaders in broad daylight. They called for the deportation of thousands of Hindus from Canada. And all of this happened as Canadian police stood and watched. In fact, Ottawa has defended the protests with the same old selectively applied sorry argument. This is freedom of speech and expression. But let's be real. This was not a protest. This was a brazen display of hatred against India. And where was Canada's leadership? Silent as usual. What's worse, this rally was not a one-off event. You know this, it's part of a pattern. Canada has emboldened Khalistani extremists for years. They have vandalized Hindu temples, they have harassed Indian diplomats, threatened India's leadership, and are now calling for mass deportation of Hindus. Despite all of this, Canada's response has not changed. Their government is a repeat offender. First, it was Justin Trudeau. He openly pandered to Khalistani elements. For Trudeau, they were a vote bank. His political alliances revolved around them. He remained in office thanks to the support of pro-Khalistan leaders like Jagmeet Singh. And to keep the support, Trudeau picked a fight with India. He accused India of killing a terrorist, a Khalistani terrorist called Hardeep Singh Nijjar. Nijjar, despite his shady record, had got Canadian citizenship. Trudeau said that Nijjar was killed by India on Canadian soil. India asked for proof. Trudeau failed to provide it, not a shred of evidence. It dealt a blow to India-Canada ties. Eventually, Justin Trudeau was booted out by his own party. He was replaced by Mark Carney. Carney is the new Prime Minister. Under him, there was hope for a reset. He was sworn in less than a month ago, and already Khalistanis are in action with an anti-India rally. What has Prime Minister Carney done? What has his government done? No condemnation of the rally, no arrests, and no reassurance to the Indo-Canadian community. Just pin-drop silence. But India has had enough. It lodged a strong protest with Ottawa, and India's concerns are legit. Canada calls itself a champion of liberal democracy. In reality, it has become a safe haven for separatists. Khalistani extremists are not peaceful protesters. These are radicals who threaten India from Canadian soil. And Canada's selective blindness reeks of policy failure because this is not just about India, it is about being a responsible democracy. When you let extremists run riot, you erode trust. When you ignore Khalistani vandalism and hate speech, you embolden radicals. Prime Minister Carney has spent less than a month in office, and he has a choice: to continue Trudeau's legacy of Khalistani vote bank politics or to take a stand against extremists who threaten India. So here's our message to Canada. Freedom of speech cannot be a cover for extremism. Supporting radicals is not civil liberty. The world is watching. Canadian voters have already rejected Khalistani extremists. Jagmeet Singh and his party suffered a crushing defeat in the recent election. It is now up to Canada's new Prime Minister. Will he carve a new path, or will he continue with appeasement politics? What is common between a banana taped to a wall and ancient relics linked to the Buddha from more than 2,000 years ago? Apparently, both are works of art that can simply be auctioned off at Sotheby's. Let me explain. More than a century ago, a British colonial official dug up a cache of jewels in India. They were found buried with the sacred remains of the Buddha. About 1,800 gems, including rubies, topaz, and emeralds. So, of course, he kept some of them, leaving the loot to sit in a private British kitty for decades. Now, his family wants to auction it off. The ancient jewels are set to go under the hammer tomorrow at a Sotheby's auction house in Hong Kong. Buddhists and scholars are criticizing this, and India has called it colonial exploitation. In fact, India has threatened to take legal action. Our next report tells you more.
It was 1898. India was still a British colony when an English estate manager, William Pepe, excavated a stupa at Piprawa in what is present-day Uttar Pradesh. The discovery was made just south of Lumbini, the birthplace of Buddha. Pepe uncovered an ancient stupa and a huge sandstone tomb containing sacred remains belonging to the Buddha, including his bone fragments and ashes, and about 1,800 gemstones and precious metals, like pearls, rubies, topaz, sapphires, and gold sheets. It was the first credible find of Buddha's relics in modern times. So what did Pepe do with the intact relics from more than 2,000 years ago? He handed most of them to the colonial Indian government. The bone relics went to the Buddhist king of Siam and have since been distributed to Thailand, Sri Lanka, and Myanmar, where they continue to be venerated. Meanwhile, many of the other relics were sent to the Imperial Museum of Calcutta, which is the Indian Museum in Kolkata today. But the Pepe family kept 1/5 of the sacred gems. For more than a century, this colonial loot has sat unseen in a private collection. Sometimes it is featured in exhibitions like the 2023 Met. But now, the family wants to auction it off. You heard that right. These gems, which were found buried with Buddha's bone fragments more than 100 years ago, which have been hailed as one of the most astonishing archaeological finds of all time, are set to be auctioned. They will go under the hammer at Sotheby's in Hong Kong. Understandably, this has sparked an ethical debate. Critics and scholars argue that Buddha's relics are not market commodities. They are sacred materials, not saleable objects. How can relics of the Buddha be treated like a work of art? And for Buddhist practitioners, the gems on sale are part and parcel of Buddha's bones and ash. So how can human remains simply be traded on an art show? This is a great moment of colonial cultural shame on a grand display yet again. Amid condemnation from several Buddhists and art scholars globally, India is putting up a fight against the sale. The Indian Ministry of Culture has sent a letter to Sotheby's and the Pepe family. New Delhi has accused the auction house of participating in continued colonial exploitation, saying that the auction violates Indian and international laws as well as UN conventions. Because the Pepe family lacks authority to sell the relics. New Delhi has asked for the jewels to be returned and threatened to take legal action against Sotheby's if the upcoming auction is not stopped. In a typical lukewarm British response, Sotheby's has responded, saying that the matter is receiving its full attention. Well, attention will hardly cut it. Apparently, stealing the Kohinoor is not enough. The colonial mindset is now set on Buddha's jewels too. So here's a quick reality check. These treasures are woven into India's sacred past. They should be returned to where they belong and not sold off at a Sotheby's auction like a banana taped to a wall.
It's the first Tuesday of May, and you know what that means. It's time to judge the Met Gala, Fashion Super Bowl, the Oscars of extravagance, and the internet's favorite battleground. Who served, who slayed, and who should have just stayed home? That's all anyone's talking about today. But amid all of this, India had its own moment. Our stars did not just walk the red, or should I say the blue carpet, they owned it. And leading the charge was one man, Shah Rukh Khan. He is the first Indian male actor at the Met Gala. Bollywood's biggest superstar, the fourth richest actor on the planet, a walking, talking brand. Yet the media at the carpet had just one question for him.
I'm Shah Rukh.
The West loves to believe it has a monopoly on celebrity. Well, here's a news flash. They don't. Shah Rukh Khan is not just a movie star, he's a global phenomenon. He's mocked by fans in Germany, has boulevards named after him in Dubai. His career is taught in film schools. His wax statues are all over the world. The Burj Khalifa lights up for his birthday. Shah Rukh Khan and his fame is not just anecdotal, it's empirical. His movies have grossed billions. His fan base spans continents. Hundreds wait outside his house in Mumbai every day. He's graced the cover of the Time magazine, sat opposite David Letterman, been wooed by Hollywood, and still they ask, who are you? So here's a little PSA for them. Shah Rukh Khan was born in an upper middle class family in Delhi. His father was a freedom fighter. His mother was a magistrate. Initially, Shah Rukh Khan wanted a career in sports, but soon he fell in love with theatre. He came to Mumbai to make his mark. In 1992, he made his Bollywood debut, and the rest, as they say, is history. For over 3 decades, Shah Rukh Khan danced atop moving trains, delivered soul-crushing monologues, and made 1 billion people believe in happy endings. He wasn't just in the movie, he was the movie. Shah Rukh Khan made India weep, swoon and laugh. He became the national crush. His fans range from the age of 8 to 80. His movies play in villages without cinemas and at galas in Berlin. His face has adorned textbooks and buses. His dialogues are quoted at weddings and classrooms. But it wasn't all a bed of roses, of course. Shah Rukh Khan fell, and he fell hard. He went 5 years without a box office hit. The knives were out. Film critics wrote obituaries for his stardom. Social media called him an old relic. Then in 2021 came a bigger blow. His son was arrested in a drug case. He spent close to 30 days in jail. No court had found him guilty, yet the questions would not stop. They questioned his life and his parenting. The world had almost convinced itself that he was done. But Shah Rukh Khan wasn't. In 2023, he delivered 3 massive hits. They earned around 2,500 crores at the box office. The same people who wrote him off now raved about his comeback. And what made this more poetic was the silence that preceded all of this. He did not talk his way back. He let the work speak. And that is the lesson here. To continue to persevere quietly, to trust your own skills, to fall, because we all fall, but to get back up, to put your head down and work hard. It's the universal key to success, and Shah Rukh Khan is perhaps the embodiment of that. He walked the Met Gala carpet, not just as an actor, but as an inspiration. That talent has no geography, that success does not need validation, and true icons do not chase the spotlight, they carry it with them. Well, how jobless is the internet? This new online debate will give you an idea. It's a debate that has set the internet on fire. Who would win in a fight? 100 unarmed men or 1 gorilla? That is the question. 100 unarmed men or one gorilla. Tens of thousands of netizens have reacted to this. And this includes the obvious candidates as well, like Elon Musk, Donald Trump, and Mr. Beast. Even doctors and evolutionary experts are weighing in. But as absurd as it sounds, I know you're curious. The gorilla is certainly a lot bigger than humans, but it gets tired quickly. Plus, humans can gang up and make a strategy. Apparently, even 30 men could bring down a gorilla, not even 100 needed. So forget the geopolitical news and analysis. If you take anything from tonight's show, let it be this. Now it's time for Vantage shots, images that tell the story. Jordan evacuates 1,800 tourists from Petra after flash floods hit the ancient city. Syrian President Al-Jalani shows off his basketball skills in a new social media video. And in Hong Kong, people scramble up a tower at the stroke of midnight to pluck as many buns as they can. Finally, we are taking you back in history on this day in 1937. German airship Hindenburg burst into flames in New Jersey. The fire was attributed to a hydrogen leak from the ship. This accident killed 36 of the 97 people on board. It also ended the use of airships for commercial transportation. We are leaving you on that note. Thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
make sure 嗰啲包咧擺，
唔好擺咗喺對手嘅袋度，咁就益咗對方。